Hi, my name is Claudia White. I'm an author of middle grade fantasy novels, and I live right here in Oakville. My books are Aesop's Secret, Key to Kashdune, and Surveillance Window. I want to thank the Oakville Libraries for inviting me in to share my books with you in this video. And I hope that you'll enjoy a little bit of the story I'm about to read and maybe look into some of my other books. My books are what's called a standalone series. Every book has the same main protagonist, the same characters, but each story is different, so they don't have to be read in any particular order. Today I'm going to read a little bit about Key to Kashdune, where Melinda and Felix Hutton, the two main protagonists, learn things about themselves and their abilities that even their parents didn't know they possessed. You see, Melinda and Felix Hutton are called Athenites. Athenites were named after the Greek goddess Athena because of her ability to take different shapes, and Athenites can all take the form of whatever they want. They've only learned about this for a year before, and they're still getting the hang of what it means to actually have these very unusual talents. In Key to Kashdune, we're going to start off with some of their friends who have just met with a very dangerous situation. The torch beams searched the walls of the dark and humid cavern. Harmony's hand trembled as the light wavered. The batteries are losing power. Just being in a cave was enough to trouble her. Nothing in her 10 years as both a doctor and a teacher could have prepared her for this. But it wasn't just the darkness and the silence that made her tense. All her survival instincts were screaming at her to flee. She swallowed the feeling and continued exploring the remains of what had been one of the most extraordinary archaeological finds of its day. There was little left since Horace Stumpworthy had demolished the hieroglyphs. The mere thought of such destruction, priceless history, made her blood boil. Harmony and her uncle Joe Wiltshire had arrived in Turkey less than a month before. They spent most of the month organizing and surveying the area where the cave was supposed to be. When they located it, they worked day and night for 6 days, desperately hoping to find a trace of Joe's earlier discovery. More than 10 years before, Joe, who had been working in the area as an archaeologist, discovered the cave after an earthquake cleared the rubble from the entrance. The walls inside had been covered in rich, informative drawings that detailed the existence of Athenites, a race of people that could take the shape of other animals, Harmony and Joe's ancestors. More importantly, the cave drawings told the story of peaceful coexistence between humans and their unique Athenite cousins. But Horace Stumpworthy had done all he could to destroy them, and little remained of the beautiful hieroglyphs. Harmony tensed again, her animal senses telling her to move to get out of the cave as fast as possible. She tried to ignore the impulse, but this time she couldn't quiet the fear. She yelled for Joe to run. Joe stood motionless for an instant, trying to understand what Harmony was shouting about. Then the earth above and below them started to shake. "Get out of here," Harmony yelled over her shoulder. Her uncle was already running close behind her. "That tremor could bring the whole place down," Joe called as he ran toward the cave entrance. The earth groaned and growled, then shifted again, bringing down a rain of rocks over their heads. Another tremor unleashed the stones the size of watermelons that crashed horrifyingly close, sending Harmony and Joe scrambling for safety. Dust clogged the air, blocking out the light through the narrow opening. The brightness of the entrance vanished, and they watched as the opening dissolved before them. Only seconds passed in what seemed like an endless nightmare before they were left in total darkness. Thousands of miles away in North America, 11-year-old Melinda Hutton waited for the dust to settle before struggling to her feet. Her body transitioned back to her human size. Her beak was replaced with a mouth, and curly brownish hair topped her head again. But not all of her body responded so smoothly to the change. Feathers still clung to her cheeks. Her arms were still shielded inside wings, and although her feet had grown to their full human size, they were still very claw-like and scaly. Melinda's first flight had been a success, her first landing near impossible. She had come in too fast and at too steep an angle. She had pushed with her wings as her father had instructed, but the speed of her descent made the movement difficult. Her wings caught the wind, bringing her body up slightly, but not enough and not in time. It wasn't much of a landing. It was more like she was the ball on the ground the bat as she hit the grass, then ricocheted back into the air. Her next confrontation with the earth sent her into an uncontrollable spin, and she somersaulted several yards away. The whole thing was over very quickly, but as Melinda felt every bump, spin, and tumble, she wondered if it would ever end. Transforming into different animals had become almost second nature for Melinda for the past several months. She'd only learned about her Athenite heritage a year before, but she practiced her skills every day. Athenites can take the form of any animal, eventually learning to use the skills of that animal as if they were born that way. All it took was concentration, much like a human learning to walk, throw a ball, or ride a bike. Melinda had gotten quite good at many of her transformations and would have been able to master them all if she could learn to concentrate on what she was doing. More often than not, her mind would wander, and she would change into an impossible creature, made up of different animal parts, like a rabbit with a rat's tail and goat's hooves, or a pony with feathers. This beast would often sport Melinda's freckled face and beaver-like smile. Today, her father, Jake, had decided to teach her how to transform into a bird and fly. On the onset, he seemed the perfect teacher because of his calm manner. Nothing ever seemed to ruffle or rile him. This was probably because as a doctor of human and animal medicine, he had seen things that would make most people scream, cry, faint, or at least cringe. Not Jake Hutton. He always kept his cool. His dark hair was always neatly combed, straight back. His dark rimmed glasses always rested comfortably on the bridge of his thin nose, and he always held his lean body tall and straight. He never showed any of the classic signs of stress, no matter what was happening around him. Until his daughter tried to fly. "Okay then," he said, biting his lip in frustration. "Let's try it again. Unlike a crawling insect or mammal, a bird must be precise." Jake pushed his glasses back in place with a shaking hand. "You can't just have a hawk's beak on a sparrow-sized head, huge goose feet, and hummingbird wings on He paused when he realized that he had no idea what type of bird Melinda had imagined when she styled her body. He shook his head and sighed. "You look ridiculous." He paused again as he smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "You'll never get off the ground that way. Don't just think bird. Picture the one you want to be." Melinda eyed her father as she tried in vain to put a pout on her beak. She was quite certain that she looked perfectly bird-like. He was right about one thing, however, and that was that no matter how hard she flapped her tiny wings, she could not lift off the ground. She transformed back to human form to begin the process again. Luckily, a kestrel glided overhead then, directly above them. Melinda was overwhelmed by its beauty and closed her eyes, absorbed in the sensations of transformation. Her skin tingled as feathers sprouted. Her arms felt light, almost weightless. Her skin tightened and stretched across a bony framework that was light and strong, and her arms disappeared inside wings. When the sensations had passed, she opened her eyes and stared at her father's shoes. Jake felt incredibly relieved as he looked down at the beautiful kestrel at his feet. "You did it, kiddo! You made it! You're perfect!" He then closed his eyes and calmly transformed into a slightly bigger kestrel. He looked nervously at his daughter, wondering how this next phase of her education, which was really the most difficult and dangerous, was going to turn out. "Ready then?" he said, desperately trying to put a little enthusiasm in his voice. "Let's try out those wings." Melinda felt awkward as she opened her wings. Each was longer and broader than her entire body. She raised and lowered them slowly, feeling the pressure as she pushed against the air. It didn't take her long to get the hang of it. And seconds later, she was airborne. Her flight lasted only a few seconds before she tipped forward and slammed into the dirt, unfortunately beak first. She tried again. This time, she propelled herself a little bit higher for a little bit longer before losing her balance. "That's it," Jake cringed. Melinda eyed him in disbelief. "Surely this isn't really it," she hissed, spitting out the sandy dirt that was caked inside her beak. Now this time, hold your head up high, tighten your back muscles like this, and you'll be flying. Jake swung his wings together and with precise momentum and rose into the air. I can do this, Melinda whispered. If I can change into one of these things, I can fly too. Intensifying her concentration and using huge, whooshing sweeps of her wings, she began to rise into the air. Higher and higher she propelled herself until the house and trees were in the distance. That's the way, Jake called with a nervous quiver in his voice. Now slow down and keep your wings out. Just relax and glide. Melinda did so. Suddenly she felt a freedom she'd never known. It was as if the air was holding her, both pushing and pulling, while its gentle, massaging fingers rippled through her feathers. They'd flown only a short distance when Jake called again. It's time to go back. I wanted you to watch my landing carefully. It's not as easy as it looks, he said as he swooped gracefully toward the ground. Melinda followed, diving a little too sharply. It didn't look like flying anymore as she was plummeting toward the ground. Now, Melinda, now, use your wings! Jake screamed at the sight of his daughter's free fall. That was the last thing she heard as she careened towards the lawn. Then came to a crash and the tumble and a sprawling roll. Finally resting on her back, she waited for the shrieks of concern from her father. Instead, she heard wails of laughter from her brainy 13-year-old brother Felix, who had just returned from his home away from home, the library. Jake was instantly at her side, and after a quick examination to make sure that she was still alive, he sighed, "Don't worry, Melinda, you'll get the hang of it all without more problems." Melinda sulkily rolled onto her front, feathers and dust whirling around her head. Felix calmly readjusted his thick black glasses that, as usual, had slipped down his pointy nose. He was dressed in his favorite black jeans and black t-shirt, picturing a winking Albert Einstein on the front. His choice of clothing did nothing to enhance his tall, skinny frame. With his bushy, dark brown hair topping his head, he looked a bit like an overused ragdoll. "Awesome landing, Mel," he groaned, more convinced than ever that he would never willingly learn the skills of an alpine, having never suffered even the slightest fantasy about transforming into anything. "I'll go inside and see if you made the 6 o'clock news," he teased, before spinning around and disappearing into the house, while Melinda attempted to transform back to human form. Jake's shoulders sagged as he witnessed Melinda's failed attempt to totally eradicate her feathers and return to her 10-toed human feet. "Melinda, you seem more distracted than usual today. What's up?" Melinda looked up, then followed her father's gaze to her huge kestrel feet. "I can't seem to concentrate," she sighed. "Ever since I got up this morning, I haven't been able to get Joe and Harmony out of my mind." "Why's that?" Before Melinda could answer, Felix came bounding back out of the house. "Dad, it's horrible. I just saw the news and there's been an earthquake in Turkey, right where Joe and Harmony are working." Well, thank you again for letting me share one of my stories with you. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoy all the videos that Oakville Library is supporting for other authors who are also going to share their work with you. Thank you.